Right. Appreciate everybody joining us today. Just got maybe one more minute. We'll let some other people come in. I still see some attendees joining us, and we'll kick this off. All righty. I think we're good to go ahead and kick this off. Vaughn, you want to go ahead and kick things off for us here today?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So I know the slide says Ryan, but you guys are stuck with me today. I hope that's okay. A little bit about Virtual Graffiti. We are one of the fastest growing information technology solution providers for businesses, governments, and education. And our team is certified and trained on every solution we offer, which means that we are your single go-to service on any IT request you might have. There's nothing that's too far-fetched for us to do, and we can help you with just about anything. And if you look at the bottom of the screen here, you can see our dedicated microsite solely for Cisco products and solutions. So if you see anything that you like today, make sure to go to that website and check it out. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Devon. Appreciate it. And it looks like we are recording. We'll go ahead and send that out after the webinar today. Let's go ahead and jump into this. So, hey, everybody, appreciate you joining us today for this SIG SASE webinar. My name is Dominic Middleton. I'm a security operations specialist here at Cisco. And I'll be taking you through SASE as kind of a framework and how Cisco approaches it with our secure internet gateway solution on the security side. We'll talk a little bit about the networking as a service side as well. We're just kind of do an overview of, again, how we're approaching security here in partnership with Virtual Graffiti. If I can get my mouse to work, there we go. So what we'll be going over today is some of the challenges that we're seeing in the market, challenges with setup, challenges with a work from home environment, and a lot of just the connectivity issues from a high level that a lot of our customers are approaching us today. We'll also talk again about the product, Secure Internet Gateway, and some of the components involved in that, and how that relates to the SASE framework. And then we'll actually break that down a little bit more as we go along by its individual components. We'll talk about DNS security, the connections, integration, logging, the setup for the SIG, setup for our SASE solution, the secure web gateway, the cloud delivered firewall, along with a new update on that one. and we'll round it out with the Cloud Access Security Broker, or CASB, functionality that's built into Secure Internet Gateway. So like I mentioned, let's go ahead and start out with some of the challenges out there. What are we seeing in the environment today? What are we seeing in the market? What are we seeing from a connectivity standpoint? Well, if we go back in time just a little bit, we're looking at the age of the single on-premises security stack. I've been with Cisco for a few years. When I first started here, I remember having conversations around, talking to customers about what are they doing for their MPLS setup, what are they doing for their site-to-site VPN. I'm sure a lot of those conversations are still happening today. But a few years ago, I would say, what it looked like for traffic going back and forth between the HQ and roaming users and branch offices was a lot of that traffic was internal, going over those different routes. Some of the traffic was internet, but most of it was internal communications, files being sent back and forth, just kind of keeping the business going with a little bit of internet access on the side as needed for the sake of the business. Back then, not as much was being done through the internet, not as much was being done through cloud applications, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, you name it, as a service. That was kind of an emerging market, if you will. But so a lot of that traffic was still kind of internal, and bolstered a bit by internet traffic. Nowadays, that's flipped, right? So especially in a work from home environment, the majority of traffic that we're seeing leaving the HQ or going back and forth is internet traffic. It's going to business applications. Email, for example, is a big one we talk about. So it's primarily internet based with a little bit of internal traffic now. Total. And the problem with that is that MPLS and site-to-site VPN is very expensive, costs a lot of money to get it set up. The performance lags horribly with all that internet traffic. And so that leads to having to add more MPLS tunnels, more site-to-site VPN tunnels, just to keep things moving at an adequate speed. So costs go up. Now we're kind of making it more complex, a lot more tools and vendors we have to deal with to figure out these different parts of the communication here. Integrations, maintenance, you name it. I'm sure I'm kind of preaching to the choir, but this is kind of the complications with doing things this way. So the new way of doing things, and what we're going to be talking about today, is this new model with the SD-WAN setup, the direct to internet access, all this traffic going to the internet, software as a service, again, infrastructure as a service, not going back and forth, not going between the headquarters and branch offices and roaming clients. It's going directly to the internet and vice versa. So instead of protecting things by having a massive HQ firewall where we're routing traffic back to the HQ and then out to the internet, it's a lot easier and a lot more efficient to send it directly to the internet. So instead of doing things with that primary HQ firewall, now we're trying to protect the traffic no matter where it's coming from, no matter if it leaves a branch office or roaming devices. And so that's where SIG and SASE comes in. So today, about 4 out of 5 organizations are shifting to direct internet access, especially, I'm sure you can imagine, with the work from home shift with COVID-19 and everything. As I'm sure if you're like me, you're probably getting tired of hearing about COVID-19. But as our customers and as our workers shift to a totally wireless, totally work from home environment, security has to shift to that too, right? It's no longer, hey, let's figure out the connectivity. Let's figure out how to keep the lights on at the business, and then let's figure out how to bolt on security afterwards if there's any budget left over. We have to have a conversation around how can we have this connectivity today and make it efficient and do it in a secure manner, all in the same conversation. So that's where groups like Gartner, they're coming out. They're saying that about 76% of our customers prefer a multi-function platform for security to solve some of those challenges. That's their recommendation, that you have a multi-function platform, preferably from as few vendors as possible. That really helps cut down on the complexity. It allows for better ease of use, allows for better integration and functionality between your SD-WAN or DIA setups and your security integrations there. So the fewer vendors you can use, basically, the less headache you're going to have. That's where Cisco starts to come in. So from a definition standpoint, because I get the question all the time, how do I buy SASE? What's the license? What's the part number? What's the SKU for SASE? How do I transact SASE? Well, again, SASE is kind of the framework. SASE, or Secure Access Service Edge, that's the goal here. That's what we're trying to embody with these tools, if you will. From a definition standpoint, SASE is the convergence of the network as a service side of it, whether that's SD-WAN, DIA. It's the network as a service side combined with the security as a service side. So you see on the left, again, SD-WAN carriers, WAN optimization, some of those things you're probably hearing a lot about today in conjunction with the security side. And as part of that, you have to have several components for your SASE setup, for it to be a true SASE solution, if you will. So that includes the network security, the cloud access security broker, the secure web gateway, zero trust network access, so on and so forth. So you have to have all these solutions. That's kind of the goal of SASE, is that you have a way to connect and do it as efficiently as possible and have a way to secure it as effectively as possible. That is what SASE is at the end of the day, is the combination of those two components. Worked out really well for Cisco, to be honest with you. We were already kind of headed in this direction when Gartner came out several months ago and said, this is the SASE framework. If you're familiar with Umbrella, if you're running Umbrella today, if you've ran them in the past, you're probably aware that they started out as Open DNS. They were stood up in 2006. We acquired them back in 2014, 2015, that time frame. And then from there, we started adding multiple components to it for additional security functionality. So 2017, we saw the SIG, or Secure Internet Gateway, set of security services that are integrated together. They're put together in the cloud. It's cloud native. It's not, hey, host this in your environment, host this firewall, host whatever it is. It's, we're hosting this for you, and it comes with all these different pieces that you need for an effective security posture. And then last year, we started adding even more functionality to that, including the secure web gateway, the firewall as a service, CASB functionality, SD-WAN integration with Viptela, if you've heard of that acquisition we had. And so that is where Cisco is headed from a security standpoint. It's really kind of right in line with what Gartner has to say about the SASE market. So it's really important that we kind of have that, that multi-platform functionality in place, if you will. Now, our strategic vision here at Cisco is taking all these tools, again, having them work together. This is the road that we've been on for quite some time. So any user, any device, any network that they're working on, they can get access to the internet. They can get access to their business applications, whatever it might be. They're going to do that through an SD-WAN setup. We're going to have our security attached at the hip right with it. And then as that traffic leaves, there's multiple checks in place in here to make sure that traffic is safe and secure as it goes out to those public SaaS apps, or if you're working with private applications, or if they're accessing the internet, making sure that functionality and that connectivity is secure the whole way through. So let's break down Umbrella a little bit more as a solution. We'll talk about the different components of it. And then again, we'll take those components and break them down a little bit further too, and kind of give you an idea of Cisco's approach to SASE. So first of all, like I mentioned, SD-WAN on or off network devices, doesn't matter where you're working from, as long as you have access to the internet, basically, you will be working here. So you're going to go to the Umbrella cloud. Umbrella, it's going to start with our DNS layer security. Our secure web gateway functionality is going to kick in. Cloud firewall is going to kick in, so on and so forth. Everything we've been talking about. By the way, this is backed up all by Cisco Talos. If you're not familiar with them, they are our threat intelligence group here at Cisco, largest non-government threat intelligence group in the world. More on them in just a little bit, but it's kind of the brains behind our security operations. So very important to have good threat intelligence powering all this. And some of the, or probably one of the most exciting things that I've seen in my time here at Cisco, and as a security professional, is our SecureX integration, or our SecureX setup. Again, if you're not familiar with SecureX, that is our main user interface to integrate all these different tools, not just Umbrella, but our endpoint security, our network security, our email security, our multi-factor authentication. All that feeds into SecureX, and SecureX is your main point to understand all of your different security tools, and not just Cisco, but third party as well, along with third party intelligence. So you can live your pretty much entire security day out of SecureX and get a good understanding of what your security tools are telling you about your infrastructure at any given time. So we're really excited about that integration. If you haven't had a chance to see SecureX, or if you're not using SecureX today, definitely a good conversation to have with your virtual graffiti account manager. So you can get a demo of that, kind of take a deeper look at what that is. So moving along here. So before I dive into it a little bit further, there's a few different ways to purchase this. Again, we get the question, how do I buy SASE? You don't buy SASE itself, you buy the components of SASE. And we've made that pretty easy for you here with our with these few packages we have. So again, if you're not super familiar with Umbrella or Umbrella DNS Security, there's two flavors of DNS Security today, DNS Security Essentials and Advantage. Both come with increasingly more features as we go to the right side of the page here. But DNS Security Essentials, that's going to have all of your good DNS security that you need, right? So domain filtering, security blocking, app discovery, et cetera, et cetera. It has integrations with threat response and SecureX. It has log management, the multi-org console. It's just a good standard DNS security addition to whatever you're doing today. When you move up to Security Advantage, you get a few more bells and whistles or essential pieces, to be honest, for your security posture. You get a selective web proxy. You've probably heard about that in the past if you know anything about the quote unquote intelligent proxy. That's what that is, more or less. There's integrations with our antivirus or our advanced malware protection. We can look at different files coming from potential websites, use that to understand if it's a malicious website, and we can use that to block those sites and block those files going forward. It also comes with the Investigate console, which we'll talk about more in just a minute, but it's kind of like having Google for your security posture. You can put in URLs, emails, IP addresses, whatever it might be, and that's going to show you, basically what's going on behind the scenes of those individual domains and websites. Now, when you move up to SIG, this is the true foundation for a SASE architecture. The SIG Essentials, Secure Internet Gateway Essentials, that comes with everything we've talked about already here in the middle. It also comes with the Secure Web Gateway, full URL content filtering, any Connect integrations in there, the Layer 3 and Layer 4 cloud firewall. Threat Grid is integrated too for file analysis. Again, if we're looking at particular sites and we see maybe malicious files coming from them, we can explode that in our Threat Grid sandbox, get a better understanding of what's going on there, and maybe render a malicious verdict against that site. So this is what we're going to be talking about most today is SIG Essentials. This is also integrated with our DNA Premier licensing. So if you're looking at doing an SD-WAN setup or a more robust direct-to-internet access setup going forward, if you have a project in the works for that one, DNA Premier is going to combine your SD-WAN side of that with your SIG side of that. So that's a great way to kind of get both at the same time. We build this out. So diving a little bit deeper into the individual components. So our view of the internet, what we see here at Cisco, what we see with Umbrella is 200 billion requests per day, 200 billion DNS requests. That turns out to be about 4 to 5% of the internet, actually. So it's a really great way to kind of dive deep and see what's going on in the bad neighborhoods of the internet. We have 100 million daily active users, about 23,000 at this point enterprise customers. In fact, all of the Forbes top 5, I believe, all use Umbrella. It's in 190 countries. So we see a ton of the internet, and that gives us a chance to determine, who are the bad guys and how we stop them from getting to you all as our customers. DNS layer security, this is a great way to start your SIG journey or your SASE journey. We call this the first line of defense, or the first line of secure internet defense, I guess I could say. It can be deployed enterprise-wide in minutes. Very quick to push out. It actually takes maybe 15 to 20 minutes to set it up. And then once you start adding policies, maybe an hour to be fully protected at the DNS layer. What we're looking to protect against here is malware, phishing, ransomware, botnets, command and control, crypto mining. So the majority of those attacks that are out there, we can block those right there at the DNS layer and keep them from even getting a chance to get to your firewall or get to your internal network. We can also stop them, like I mentioned, at that earliest point before it has a chance to get inside. If it does get inside, we have kind of a slick way of doing security there too. If there's a way that malware gets in through a back door somehow, maybe it's a non-DNS way of getting in. Maybe I have an infected iPhone that I plug into my laptop here, and I get infected that way. If the infection is within my device already, I can actually contain that and keep it from calling back out, making that command and control request to the bad guy in Russia or wherever they're at, and keep that malware, keep that ransomware, that actual attack from turning on. So it's kind of a cool way, even if I don't stop it, which about 90% of those threats come across the DNS layer, even if I don't stop it there, I can contain it within my network and keep it from going back out. Oh, by the way, the user experience, we are the second fastest DNS provider in North America. The only one faster than us at this moment is Google, and they don't do security. So we are basically the fastest secure DNS provider out there. So a lot of our customers actually see even quicker website resolution speeds than they would with whatever they're using through their current ISP or whatever's out there. So just to kind of recap a little bit around DNS security, good protection for all activity anywhere. All office locations, doesn't matter if you're in the HQ, the branch office, home office, working out of a hotel, working out of an airplane, if things ever start to open up a little bit more. So it doesn't matter where you're at. Good for on the network, off the network, any device, anything that's trying to connect in, all ports and protocols. It's a great way to have security. It's a great way to stop a lot of threats from a wide variety of places, really no matter where you're at. If you have internet access, you can have Umbrella. You can be protected against threats that might be trying to make their way in. A little bit more on the intelligence side of things, which is to say Talos Intelligence. Again, Talos is made up of about 350, 400 around there, threat hunters, researchers, hackers, analysts. So they sit all across the world. It's 24/7, 365 operation. Basically, all they're doing is looking for different threats that are out there, correlating those threats, and then getting that threat information back out to you all as our customers. So kind of cool real world scenario here, or real world example, I should say, is a few years ago, if you remember back to the WannaCry attack, I like to talk about this one. It's just a good use case. If you remember back to that one, you probably remember kind of how it all unfolded. So all these major attacks that come out, there's always kind of like a hallmark. What makes this one special? Well, what made WannaCry special was that it went across about 160 countries overnight, just exploded out across the globe with its attack. So it was really kind of like, renowned how quickly it got out there. Now, again, if you know that, you might also know how it got stopped. It actually got stopped by a young security researcher in the UK. He determined what was going on with WannaCry, determined that he needed to find out the domain, register the domain, I should say. And then from that point, he was able to point all the traffic into a sinkhole, which effectively stopped the ongoing attack. So behind the scenes, how he actually did that is he used Umbrella's Investigate console to determine what was happening with WannaCry. He actually used that to figure out what was going on. Again, he went and pointed all the traffic to a sinkhole after registering the domain. Good to go. But from the time that Umbrella saw WannaCry to the time that all of our Cisco security customers were protected against WannaCry was about 11 minutes start to finish. So that's basically as fast as it gets in this industry, right? So it's a really cool way to do security, really good to have that good intelligence team on your side. And so that's kind of Talos in a nutshell. On top of that, within Umbrella SIG, we have dozens of statistical models we use to determine what are bad websites. We use co-occurrence models, DGA, on and on and on. If you ever want to see that, you definitely should set up a demo with the Virtual Graffiti team. They'll take you through and kind of show you all these cool models and everything, how it's working on the back end. And some of the data we kind of already talked about, 200 billion requests per day. We see about 5% of the internet. We see more, emails and traffic and everything than anybody out there. That gives us a chance to get there first and stop the attack first. So we're pretty proud of our intelligence and everything that's kind of operating behind the scenes here. A couple more things on the DNS side of things. So our data centers, we have upwards of 30 of them. I think about 35 at this point. And they're co-located at major, ISPs and everything. So we work with Anycast routings. That's how we're able to have a faster internet speed while also being secure. What's really cool about this, and what we really like to talk about here, is that since Umbrella was founded back in 2006, we've had 100% business uptime. So if one of these data centers goes down, let's say you're connecting to the data center in Santa Clara, for example, if that goes down for whatever reason, or if they have to power down for maintenance or whatever it might be, your data just rolls over to the next closest data center. So there's no loss in traffic, there's no downtime, there's no losing your internet connections, anything like that. So it's a great, robust, secure way of doing things. That redundancy is built in, and it all exists kind of right out of the box, which is pretty cool. So let's talk a little bit more about the integrations, connections, logging. How do we set this up? How do we push out a secure SD-WAN setup? That's kind of what we're here to talk about right now on this slide. So basically, what SIG allows for is a simple effective protection with either Viptela or Meraki MX, wherever you're using for your SD-WAN setup. If you buy them both as a bundle, let's say Viptela, for example, and Umbrella SIG, you can actually do auto provisioning and push out your tunnels and your IPsec tunnels within just a few clicks. It's very quick to set up. The name of the game here is having good control and simple control over all of your tunnels, all of your SD-WAN setup. You're not having to manage individual consoles for every individual site. You can just push it all out, manage it from one cloud-based user interface, and be good to go. Low latency, because those many data centers, because we have so much built-in redundancy here in place. That redundancy is intra-regional by design. So if something fails over, again, you're not going to have to fail over all the way to Japan, for example. You'll fail over to the next closest data center. Things will be moving smoothly and quickly still. And on top of all this, it adds deeper inspection, deeper visibility using some of these different components like the firewall, like the secure web gateway. We can not only set up this traffic and have you moving right along, we can give you better insights into what's happening with that traffic and any potential threats that might be coming across it. So talking about the tunnel capacity and failover, how does this actually get set up? What does this actually look like? Well, first of all, you have a primary tunnel that you can set up. From that point, you can hard code that. You can hard code a secondary if you'd like to as well. The tunnels themselves come with 250 megabyte tunnels in each direction. You can burst up to 500. That's growing daily. We're currently building out our data centers to allow for faster tunnel speeds. If that's not enough for you, you can set up more tunnels and you can get a little bit more capacity that way. So you're not being bogged down by just a couple of them. Now, once you set up that first one, if for whatever reason the Los Angeles data center goes down, your traffic just rolls over to Santa Clara or wherever's closest to you. In the case of that secondary failure, or if you set up maybe just one tunnel, for example, and you have no backup, you'll automatically be backed up to a disaster recovery site. So again, even if you don't set it up with your own high availability in place, you'll automatically be covered because you'll fall back to a little bit further out disaster recovery point, again, to keep your traffic from going down, to maintain that 100% uptime. There's some pretty flexible connection methods here as well. So if you're setting up your SD-WAN and your SIG from your HQ and branch location, you can set up your IPsec tunnel. That's going to be good for your cloud-delivered firewall web traffic. For web traffic, if you're looking for a little bit alternate way of doing things, you can set up a proxy chain or pack file. That's another good way to send that traffic out and do it, efficiently. And then this is also great for roaming clients. Again, you don't have to be working out of the HQ or branch office. You could be working from wherever. Like, for example, you probably noticed I'm working out of my home office today. Doesn't matter where you're at. Run Umbrella. It has a roaming client. It also has an integration with AnyConnect. We can put that AnyConnect lightweight client or roaming client on your laptop and get your connection that way. And so that's going to be good for web traffic. That's going to be good for your DNS security. However you want to connect in, doesn't matter. Again, wherever you're at, you got that good secure connectivity. So from a flow of traffic here, because we're going to start talking about some of these other components like the cloud delivered firewall. So moving along here, so traffic leaving my environment, traffic leaving my laptop, for example, it's going to hit that DNS first. They're going to make sure there's no threats in there. There's no C2 callbacks, no malware, phishing, etc. If we're clear there, then my traffic is going to roll over to the cloud delivered firewall. So a couple of reasons for this. First of all, if we can block a lot of threats at the DNS layer, that makes things easier on the firewall, right? Keeps it from getting bogged down more. So we can clean that traffic up a little bit. Now, if the traffic looks like it's good to go, not malicious or anything, it's going to pass the DNS. It's going to go to the cloud delivered firewall. They're going to evaluate anything that didn't get covered by DNS. And any traffic from that point that's 80 or 443, HTTP, HTTPS, internet traffic, anything from there is going to go to the secure web gateway to get a deeper inspection. If it's not, then this is going to go, it's going to get natted out and it's going to go wherever you have it set up by policy. So that secure web gateway, again, it's going to evaluate all that internet traffic and make a determination on, is this bad, is this good, and start blocking things if needed. So let's dive in a little bit deeper now into the SWG, the secure web gateway. We'll kind of talk about a little bit deeper dive. How's this actually working? So again, traffic, wherever it's coming from, if it's coming from my on or off network devices, if it's again going to hit that DNS first, it's going to go to the cloud delivered firewall after that, and then on to the secure web gateway. So what we're doing at this stage for this internet traffic is, again, we have that integration with our antivirus and our advanced malware protection. We're looking for any files incoming, outgoing that are malicious, and making blocks based on what we're seeing there. There's also threat grid file sandboxing. So if we're seeing some files come in, we can make a block on those. We can explode any attachments, any potentially malicious files in the threat grid sandbox, get a better understanding of what it's doing or what those attachments are trying to do, and then make a determination to let them in or block them totally. App visibility and granular controls. So application security itself, we can manage that as well. We can determine based on content categories who's doing what in there. more on that next couple of slides, but again, better, more granular visibility into applications and traffic coming and going from them. There's also full URL level reporting. So we'll tell you, who in your environment, which one of your users accessed which URLs, the time and date they did it, which device they did it from. So lots of good, again, visibility information around that type of reporting. Content control as well. We can do that through those categories, making sure they're not going to gambling websites, music websites, bandwidth hogs, things like that. We can block those out. There's also full or selective SSL decryption based on your needs there and what you currently have in your infrastructure, file type controls around executables, PDFs, docs, you name it. We can make determinations on that as well. So it's going to go through the secure web gateway. We'll look for any malicious threats in that vector. And then if it's good to go, it goes out to the internet or your SaaS applications. So yeah, kind of a cool way of doing security there. Diving in a little bit deeper, like I talked about that full URL tracking and reporting. This is great for compliance, monitoring, investigation. So even if it's not a security feature, it might be good just as an HR feature if we're being honest with ourselves. So again, we can see who is accessing what URLs, what websites. As you can see, there's kind of a screenshot there, a little bit zoom out. Who is going to that destination, what IP address it is. And it also show, I think in the next slide, it'll show who's doing that and who's accessing these websites. So that'll helps us see trends, helps us see where people are going. If we're seeing a ton of people go to YouTube or Netflix or whatever, we can actually put blocks on those and keep them from doing that. We can monitor their activities. If someone does something they shouldn't have and they introduce something malicious into the environment, or there's a chance they did before we blocked it, we can do an investigation on that one as well and determine again, who was doing this and why did they do that, and then have a conversation with them. So the category blocking, we can block based on category, and we can block based on the individual URLs themselves for blacklisting and whitelisting. From a category standpoint, this is going to be a policy for a large number of sites. As it says here, academic fraud sites, news and media, if people are being on there and they're wasting time, adult themes, obviously probably want to block those out. Arts, astrology, auctions, you name it. There's about 100+ categories today that we can put blocks on. Malware virus protection. Again, we can use that as part of an integration, and it comes with the purchase of SIG. It's not an additional purchase, but we can use that to scan, detect malware viruses, see where they're coming from. We can, block infections. We can stop attacks. We can keep that from doing its job, basically, keep the bad guys from, from winning there. Umbrella, again, that's where the AMP is built in. You can also do third-party virus protection tools. If you want to add in Virus Total, for example, you could do an integration there, get a second opinion on some of the sites that we're looking at, and then several different types of reports. It's actually pretty cool from a visibility standpoint. There's lots of different ways to look at the data, lots of different ways to understand who's doing what at what time, where they're going to. As it shows here, a good example of that is in this screenshot, this kind of exploded view. We can see that this jumper individual on their laptop, that's what that little sign signifies. They were going to these destinations, Google profiles, VPN over DNS. It looks like there's one that's gibberish in there. That might have even been a phishing link that got masked. We can see them attempting to access those destinations. We can see why we blocked them. Malware, there were park domains, there were whatever it might be, right? So again, a great way to get some good visibility into what's happening in your environment. Now, app controls, we talked about content categories. Now we're going to talk about apps a little bit. So the apps themselves, we can put different blocks on them. So for example, in this case, Dropbox, let's say that our organization here, we're standardizing on Box. We want to use Box. All of our files are going to be in Box. Box is what we're about. If we have users using Dropbox now, that might be something, hey, you're out of compliance. We're going to block access to Dropbox for our users. We can block uploads. And just, things like that, those types of apps or apps within app categories, if you will, we can make blocks on that. Social media is another good one. If we're allowing, for example, Facebook, if we want our users to, post some things to that about the business, or we have a business page on Facebook, we can allow that. But if we want to block Instagram, we can block that, right? So even though they're both social media, we're going to allow one, we're going to block the other. So again, pretty granular way of doing things here. So let's talk a little bit more about the cloud delivered firewall at this point. And I do have some kind of cool updates around this one too. So the focus here for the firewall itself is as an outbound firewall. And the reason for that is because it allows us to secure access to the internet and controls cloud app usage. That's kind of the focus here. We have incoming security for DNS and Secure Web Gateway, but for traffic that's specifically firewall focused or IPsec focused, it's primarily going to be that outbound use case. So as it stands today, where we're currently at is we have a layer 3, layer 4 cloud delivered firewall. Layer 7 is currently in limited availability. Excuse me, we're expecting layer 7 IPS, IDS, for example, coming out here in a quarter or two. But we recently, just a couple days ago, had a release for the layer 7 application visibility and control. So if you're familiar with our other firewalls, our ASAs or our next generation 1000s or 2100s or 4300s, we have ABC built in there today. That's application visibility and control. So again, if we want our users to if we want to have granular blocks for our users around specific sites or apps, we can do that. Again, going back to the Facebook model or the Facebook example. So what we can do with that one is, for example, if we want to allow our users to go to Facebook, but we want to block them from being able to post, or we want to let them post, but we want to block them from chatting, or we want to block them from playing games, but we want to let them, message people. You can have those kind of granular controls within applications, which is pretty awesome. So that's out today. That came out just a couple of weeks ago. And then as we go on, some more of the layer 7 capabilities like DLP, things like that, those will be coming out in the coming months, which we're pretty excited about. Today, it's on the IPsec tunnel. Again, we kind of talked about that outbound use case as well. Just make sure I'm covering everything here. We also talked about that multi-geo data center support. We can have redundancy built in within the region, or we can have that built in, however you want to set it up, basically, whatever data centers you want to use, you'll be available to do that. Login reporting, lots of good granular information, who's doing what in there in your Umbrella console. You can also export logs to an Amazon S3 bucket if you're looking to maintain some of those logs, maintain that information for over time. You can do that. You can do that too. So again, kind of a good way to do things here from a cloud delivered firewall standpoint. It is truly cloud delivered. It is within our data centers. We're not asking you to install any, any firewalls or any virtual appliances for the firewall side of things. It's truly a cloud delivered firewall, which is pretty cool. Moving along here. So again, a flow of information. This is kind of a better way to look at it, if you will. So again, traffic leaving, wherever it might be on-prem or, leaving the HQ or branch office. That's either going to go through a VPN tunnel or it's going to go to the DNS, depending on what kind of traffic it is. From that point up to the cloud delivered firewall. Again, keep in mind, this is specific to firewall traffic. Going to go to the cloud delivered firewall. It's going to get inspected there for any policy violations. If it's from ports 80 or 443, that internet traffic, that's going to go straight to the Secure Web Gateway, kind of what we already talked about. We'll look for different blocks and threats there. We'll make those blocks. If it's not internet-specific traffic, that's going to go out. It's going to get natted out and onto the internet. There's also blocks in here you can put as well as part of your firewall policies. So it's a good way to just kind of direct traffic, make sure all again, from a firewall-specific standpoint, making sure any traffic that's leaving is going where it should be going. There's no policy violations there, so on and so forth. So we got just one more thing to talk about here. This is going to be our CASB functionality, or our Cloud Access Security Broker, and some of the granularity that comes with that one. So the focus on CASB here and where this is coming from is, if you're familiar with our current standalone CASB solution, CloudLock, what a lot of the features that we're talking about here today, a lot of those came from CloudLock. So we've been kind of slowly cannibalizing some of the better features out of that one, adding them into SIG, and that's where a lot of these CASB features are kind of built from, if you will. So the focus here is solving challenges around shadow IT. So visibility, getting better insight into what's going on with our apps. Risks, how do we know what apps are in there? How do we know how bad they are? Should we be blocking these apps? And then optimizing application usage and efficiency within the environment that's being done by our users, right? So breaking down a little bit further, this is going to give you a full list of cloud apps currently in use in your environment. What I would challenge you to do is try and think about how many apps do I think are in my environment today, and kind of get an idea of that one. I highly recommend at some point you run a trial on Umbrella through your VG team here. And that'll kind of show you a realistic view to how many apps you're currently using. It's not uncommon for us to run trials with our customers and find out that they're running upwards of 3,000 or 3,500 cloud apps at any given time. Seems like an outlandish number. It blew me away the first time I heard it, but that's a pretty realistic number. So imagine if you could have access and insight into all those different apps and seeing, what are they and what are people using them for, and why are they using them? That's some great insight to have into your environment. It'll show you the number of users, who's using these apps. It'll block the high risk categories. It'll also show you vulnerable apps too, or apps that you would think that they'd be used for one purpose, but they're actually being used for another purpose. Or for example, like money sharing apps. A lot of those are getting compromised lately. We can show you, hey, people are using this in the environment. Maybe you want to cut down on that. It's, got a lot of known vulnerabilities with it. We can show you some of that stuff too. So that is that's the end of the presentation here. So going onward, next steps, what we're requesting or what we think, would be a good next step for you guys. I talked about trials a little bit. If all this is, if it looks like this is a good fit for you, SIG, or this is, if this is in line with what you're trying to do with your SASE or your SD-WAN setup, next step I would say is reach out to your virtual graffiti team, get a trial going with them, get a demo going with them. I believe they're actually running a pretty cool promotional offer right now. The first 5 customers that run an Umbrella trial in their environment, we can help you get that set up. The first 5 that run that are actually going to get an Amazon gift card. So kind of just a nice little way to, to try and incentivize you to check out what's going on in your environment, get some more visibility, get some better security, and really have a good security posture and a good SASE setup going forward. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions if they came in the Q&A. Jessica, I don't know if you're monitoring that one, or not sure if anything came in there. I can expand this down too, I think.
You are the host for right now, so I do not see anything, but I do see a hand.
Okay, if you do, let's see. All right. Gaurav Kumar, I think that's your hand up. We're going to go ahead and unmute you really quick if you want to ask a question. And I'm not hearing much. You might be double muted. Otherwise, if there's other questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. We got a couple more minutes here. We can stay on and go over some things. Okay. If there are no Q&As, do we want to go ahead and wrap this thing up, Devon?
Yeah, that was all great. I want to thank you all for joining, and make sure to check out that microsite if it's possible to put that slide back up and they could see it one more time before we head out.
We definitely can. We'll go ahead and open that up, and we'll leave it up there for just a couple minutes.
Perfect. And thank you so much for your amazing demonstration.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Thank you guys. Always good partnering with you.